Let's dive into DeFi today and the altcoins that could be exploding along with it. We'll break it down for you. We've got a special trader in the house. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's roll into it. I do want to thank our sponsor, Tangem. This is a place where you guys can start your DeFi journey. Did you know that you can get a ton of tokens into your own private wallets over on Tangem and start your self-custody journey? It's very easy to set up. That's the cool thing about Tangem. It's probably the simplest wallet out there. So if you're brand new to crypto, don't get intimidated with self-custody. You can actually do it just by jumping on to the Tangem website. I think they even say something that you can set it up in like 3 minutes. I'm going to say yes, you can. So check it out. Use our link down below to get started. All right, I want to bring in Tim Warren coming in from Investing Broz. You guys will know the channel, the myth, the legend, Investing Broz. You guys visit, no, seriously, Investing Broz does a good job on their channel, and they're kicking it over there. Make sure and jump in, say hi to him and T-Shroom. We'll talk about a battle. Man, we got a battle that is going head to head, and that is Trump versus Powell. Man, Trump is just not letting up on this guy. He is the dumbest and most destructive person in America. And we are losing billions, according to Trump, all based on these interest rate non-modifications, which everybody's kind of pointing to. Do you think we're going to get a rate change this year at all, a downward trend rate? What are your thoughts?
I think signs are still pointing towards September. And I know we're going to get into a lot of doom and gloom with how Jerome Powell kind of handled the interview, because there are definitely some things in it that were not good, right?
Yeah.
But I think something that was done on the front end, if you looked at the initial reports that they gave and even his opening statement, he talked about how the economy is diminishing but is still elevated. They also, in the previous meeting, had concern. They wrote in the report, concern for stagflation. So for all people listening, stagflation is when both the unemployment levels and inflation rise at the same time. They removed that concern from this month's statement, which is actually a good sign. That's a very good sign, which the only logical thing could be, well, they don't think inflation's as bad necessarily as it once was. There's still some indecision and uncertainty about what exactly tariffs will look like. I think this will be a big one, I think, is the next one, because he made a light projection that's going to be very important for what he answers the questions in July. He said how even though inflation hasn't increased, the early stint of the tariffs, we're starting to see some increases in pricing. And since he's so data-driven, if he's right, then we should see inflation rise over the next month, in which case CPI will rise, inflation numbers will rise. But if we get into July and those numbers haven't risen, and as his own words said, we're starting to see the repercussions of tariffs. If the tariffs are coming in and inflation's not going up, he's going to have a foot in his mouth unless he starts looking at cutting rates next month.
Yeah, the argument is that the supply chain, whether it's the retailers themselves or the manufacturers, are going to absorb this. You know, granted, yes, a lot of these companies are, highest profits ever over the last 5 years. So yeah, they could probably take a little bit of absorption. Some of the retailers have already said they would. So I think it's still up in the air, but the uncertainty level is still ticking off very high. I want to play a clip for you. This is Trump almost guaranteeing uncertainty. Take a look.
You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Do you think it's too late to now?
Not really. Nothing's too late. The only thing too late is Powell. Powell's too late. Too late, Powell.
Have the Iranians reached out to you, Mr. President?
What?
Have the Iranians reached out to you?
Yes.
And what did they say?
I said it's very late. Well, I don't know how much longer it's going to go on.
What does unconditional surrender mean?
Well, you know what it means, unconditional.
Can you explain it for those who don't?
Very simple words. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. Look, nothing's finished until it's finished. War is very complex. A lot of bad things can happen. A lot of turns are made. So I don't know. We'll see. The next week is going to be very big. Maybe less than a week. Maybe less. Have a good time, everybody.
I don't know. Sometimes Trump feels like he's crazy like a fox or just crazy. I don't know which it is.
Well, I'll say this. I'm sure Donald Trump watches the Paul Barron show.
Yeah, he's watching us right now. Yeah,
Donald Trump get a nap. I think you're tired. Like I like you watch that whole clip, and it's very clear he's tired of people he perceives as being dumb.
He's a little
asking him
punchy.
questions.
Yeah, he's a little punchy.
You can just tell. I mean, to be granted, if you're dealing potentially on the verge of war, you think the economy needs stimulus from the Fed, and they keep not doing their job. You're getting attacked by people that helped support you in your campaign. I understand if he might be a little light on sleep here, but I watched that clip and it's just funny. That's the first thing that pops off to me. I was like, that's a man right there that needs a nap.
Yeah. Well, the thing he was able to come away from his nap long enough to be able to tweet out on True Social, especially around the Stablecoin Act. And of course, this passed through the Senate. Here's Tara talking about this. And she's hitting on this is because there's a lot of people making calls now in from the industry saying, hey, this could happen very quickly. You look at this, obviously, rolling through Capitol Hill. Likelihood is next up, we're going to see the market structure bill. This could start a little bit of a domino effect. And we've already seen Circle is exploding. Robinhood is exploding. Anybody that's got a stablecoin component, Coinbase, in terms of traditional stocks. And I think now the TradFi investors are starting to wake up and go, oh, wait a minute, there is this crypto thing that seems to be brewing right now. So that is a good sign overall. One of the things that it could point to is Ethereum. Here we go. ETH bullish catalyst. Remember, they had the ICO 2017, DeFi summer. Then we went in 2021, it was NFTs. This year, stablecoins. Do you think that will be the case for exploding this cycle for Ethereum?
Yeah, I think that Ethereum obviously will benefit because a lot of these stablecoins have been built there. The other one to track and remember is a lot of these stablecoins, they're going to need to have proof of reserves. And the greatest way to verify that will be the coin that everyone gives me a hard time for being a fan of, but it's Chainlink. Chainlink will be essential. And guess what? Chainlink was built on Ethereum as well. So Ethereum, I think, will benefit very much. Well, I think all of crypto will. I know there's a world in which stablecoins do very well and altcoins don't, but I see a lot of people as they get more comfortable with holding value on the blockchain. Maybe it starts off with just stablecoins, but that's one of the hardest things to get into. Just getting your money out of the bank, getting your money out of what you're used to and into the blockchain. You'll learn a whole lot more. And I guess it's going to be very beneficial for Bitcoin, obviously, very beneficial from Ethereum from a fundamental standpoint, but then other altcoins as well. The more people get involved there, the more they'll learn about crypto as a whole, and their eyes will start to wake up to the same reasons why people can remember Michael Saylor right now. All you can think of with Michael Saylor is the color orange, and he's the biggest Bitcoin proponent or maxi on the planet. He at one point hated blockchain technology as a whole. He said the whole thing was a Ponzi scheme. How many more Michael Saylors will we have here in the next 4 or 5 years as the world moves further into cryptocurrency? They once hated it, but now they love it. I think that's what we're in the future for. Well,
so we're going to talk about some of them, and they're going to be living in the ETH ecosystem. What is your current prediction on Ethereum when you look at your chart? On ETH right now and where it's trading? We had a little bit of breakout here over the last couple of weeks, but then we stalled a little bit. What's your current situation?
Yeah, there's a couple coins out there that are absolutely, they dropped a little lower than I thought. They were going to pull back on some of this, uncertainty when it comes to Iran and Israel, but Ethereum holding up extremely well. I think I said this on your channel last week. As long as we don't drop back below 2,400, right? We're going to be okay. And the reason why I kind of put that line in the sand is because that was the last major touch here back on June 5th. And we had some, discouragement, and then we popped back up. And take a look here. We are humming along, keeping that support level. You can't say necessarily the same thing for the likes of like Ondo, which of course has been coming back down here. Cardano coming back down towards 60 cents. Sui, of course, splashing back down below $3. Ethereum is holding up very well, despite the fact that even Bitcoin dominance, after giving a little break of thinking maybe Bitcoin dominance was going to pull back down towards 62, it got back up over 65, and yet still Ethereum holds that strong support. And the reason why this strong support is really important is because, like you said, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Ethereum had its little breakout back here early in May, but this consolidation period is only a holding pattern before the next big move. And again, the formation that's in play right here would be called a bull pennant. Bull pennants, if it ends up playing out correctly, as long as we stay above 2,400, the probability of a breakout towards 3,800 remains the most likely outcome for a big breakout. a big breakout is for certain. When you consolidate like this, you're either going to break out majorly to the upside or majorly to the downside. In this case, Ethereum could drop back down towards 1,800. But if you're going to ask me the question about probabilities, which is the more probable breakout for Ethereum, I'm still going to keep my finger on that 3,800 mark instead of only 1,800.
Well, and that's something that we're watching around the idea of what we're going to see in DeFi. And that could be the explosive summer that we've kind of been looking to. Unichain is now partnered up with Morpho Labs. This is going to be where you'd be able, right now Morpho does the same thing with Coinbase where you can loan against your Bitcoin. Now Morpho Live is going to be able to allow you to do borrowing inside DeFi. Now, I'm not saying that you should do that. Point being is that Uniswap might be the new holy grail. And if you look at Uniswap's chart right now, it is looking pretty solid. What do you like around Uniswap?
Yeah, when it comes to Uniswap, I mean, this was one I think we talked about a long time ago where we talked about potential to the upside. This is one that has great potential to the upside. Weeks ago, we were tracking the falling channel it was in. We predicted a bullish breakout. I think it took a little longer than we thought. I mean, this is months ago, actually, because it didn't break out till back in April. But that's a nice steady. I'll say this, if you're tracking trends on the daily chart, you have a nice solid higher high and higher low thing going on. It is going to be something to definitely pay attention to for a possible pullback, depending on how you draw these. But ultimately, this rising channel, I'm not going to change the colors just for the sake of time, but this rising channel, unless we can get a confident break to the upside with big volume coming in, this is one that I'd be a little worried could have a pullback here. I mean, even when we're talking about those money flows and different things, the good news is the money flow is just not very aggressive right now. It's not really telling us strong one way or the other. But you can see on the daily chart, it is starting to come back out. Good sign right here, though. This is a green dot coming in here today on the daily chart. If that can hold and close tonight, that could be a stopping of the bleeding. I'm assuming we're going to have some green dots on 12 hours. We have a little bit of a bullish bubble to the downside on the 12-hour chart. So do we see a pop back up here back towards resistance? Yeah, I think we can see a pop back up to $9 if these green dots can hold on the 12-hour and daily chart. We could see a pop back up, but until, again, let's call it somewhere here in the world of 950. If we can't break back above 950 soon, this channel has an increased probability of a downward move, and my target would probably be potentially a pullback back as low as 570 unless the bulls can take back over control. Yeah.
Well, if you don't believe us in terms of where this might be going, listen to what Matt Hougan had to say about Uniswap.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I actually think we're on the cusp of a DeFi renaissance, both from a utility perspective and from an investment perspective. And so you have all these poor tokenomic designs embedded into these DeFi protocols. I expect as regulation changes, you're going to see that switch. You're going to see much more direct monetization. And then investors are going to realize that these assets are substantially undervalued versus the economic value that they're delivering to their customers. You look at something like, Uniswap doing $70-80 billion of trading volume. That's an enormously valuable business with very low overhead. Yeah. I think once we get the tokenomics right, I think there'll be a repricing of DeFi.
Interesting. So repricing on DeFi could be a big deal. If you look at the charts right now and on DeFi Llama, you can kind of see a little bit in terms of fees. And Uniswap, I mean, this is now above pump.fun. I mean, it's not far behind. It's about half the rate of where Circle is setting. And if you look at a potential of a lowering rate, let's just assume that the Fed drops the interest rate, which we think is going to happen, then you're going to see some money start to move out of money markets and out of USDC, and they're going to deploy. And that's where you could see a lot happening in, obviously, the DeFi ecosystem, which is where we could see some yields playing out. So I'm on that camp for sure. Speaking of that, DeFi, Coinbase announced, they're going to be doing, the capability of now just exploding the DeFi ecosystem. You'll be able to trade almost everything on Coinbase. Many people are speculating that Aero could be one. I think it's still going to be Uniswap that would be the one that integrates. When you look at Aerodrome right now, would this be a token you would go into at its current position?
Yeah, we actually went in as a community with the Investing Bros group back here when we broke out of this channel. back in June. Now, I did not know we were going to come up this fast, this fast. And we are starting to run into some resistance levels. You can see here on the daily and 12-hour charts, we're running into those resistance clouds. Without added liquidity that you just mentioned, without the added, rate cuts coming in, I'm not going to put a lot of weight into us breaking this red cloud, which does happen during explosive moves. So, for example, if you come back over here to the fall of 2024, we kind of stretched these clouds after the Trump announcement was made. That was during high levels of liquidity coming in, high levels of optimism. You don't break through these red clouds without that added boost, added juncture. But here's what I'll say. Aerodrome has been carrying crypto gains over the last couple of weeks on their back. I mean, what other coin out there is making people as much money since back here in early June, more so than Aerodrome? I'm sure you can find a coin number 5,475th that's had a bigger rally, but you get my take here. If we're looking at the top 100 projects, Aerodrome is standing alone right now, and I think that's a sign of something to come. Even if I think that we should have some form of a pullback here, and we probably should look at, at the very least, making moves back down towards the 4-hour smart trail, probably realistically even looking towards this 12-hour back towards 68 cents. The reality is this is a sign of confidence, and I wouldn't be going against it. I'm not a big fan of people necessarily going into right here and right now, as it's had a large pump. It's up very high. It's hitting resistance. But at the same time, as we're looking at the next couple of weeks and months, when you're deciding what to put your extra capital into, there's a split of thought. Some people like to take the coins that have done nothing. And they say, well, once this coin does pop off, I'll have the greatest return. But there's also a lot of credit to be said, choosing winners like Aerodrome that are succeeding in the boring moments. Imagine when liquidity actually starts flowing, just how high a coin like Aero could fly.
Yeah, I think DeFi are going to be some of the key projects out there. Everybody always asks, what categories, and if you just look at what's going on in the DeFi, and understand that the likelihood with stablecoins, with all the regulatory lineup, when you think about just some of the things that are happening right now that are very beneficial for DeFi, very good going forward. Speaking of that, let's talk about Arbitrum. Here's Matt Hougan talking about, while everybody's focused on Powell, Robinhood is trying to evaluate right now of using Solana or Arbitrum. We think it's going to be Arbitrum as the backbone of their new service that's going to give tokenized stocks. This is coming to the U.S. at some point. So if they do go that direction, that would be a boom, obviously, for Arbitrum.
Absolutely.
And it would change maybe the destination of Arbitrum as a layer 2. When you look at Arbitrum right now, would it be an entry point for you?
Well, I'll say this. I think you're going to want to wait for that news to break. I think you're going to want to wait to see if that's for certain. Again, I kind of just got out of his whole statement. Some people like to buy coins when they're low. Other people like to buy winners as they have pullbacks. Arrow is a great example of a winner that needs a pullback before you get in. Arbitrum would be a good example if you're going to invest in a coin that's not done a lot and therefore has greater upside potential. But take a look at this chart here. Let me go to the daily chart, just kind of fix it. This is just not good. There's not a lot of projects that have this type of negative momentum building from a support and resistance standpoint. I mean, even if Arrow popped all the way back up to 68 cents, you're still sitting here watching this saying, man, that's such a negative lower high and lower low here on the grand scheme of things. If you go even lower here, you kind of are starting to deal with this falling level resistance right here and a falling wedge. So if that news comes and hits, it could be very positive news. I mean, we could see this send the price of Aerodrome all the way back up here. Excuse me. Let me grab this line. A lot of yellow on my chart right here. Sorry, Arbitrum. Excuse me. You're right. I read the other one. Arbitrum. Excuse me. It could send price back up to $1.30 on the breakout, and that'd be a great news. But if it doesn't get the Robinhood contract, if it doesn't end up becoming the coin for Hood, this chart's a very scary looking chart for a longer term investor. Trading wise, hey, go for trades. It is clearly still a volatile chart. It's not dead. It's not zero. Look for volume to come in. Look for breakouts of support and resistance. But as far as long term holds, I mean, I said this a long time ago. Layer 2s exploded so much during 2021. They were such a pivotal part of that bull market. I think people are going to be a little surprised. Layer 2s are not the main story this time. They're not going to be the coins that are 30x, 40xing and making you a lot of money. And so Arbitrum's they're going to need to do something and stand alone. They can't just be a good scaling solution for Ethereum. They need to stand out. And a contract with Hood, one of the faster growing, higher exchanges, that would be absolutely monumental.
It'd be huge. Yeah, it'd be huge.
But they got to close it first.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we've seen this around a lot of these different narratives. But the point is now we are finally at the opportunity where a lot of these companies can start to actuate on much of the idea of where blockchain is going to be, especially around tokenized stocks. Hey, listen, Tim, what is going on Avalanche? We're watching stablecoins right now on the Avalanche ecosystem. It is bleeding like crazy. And it's actually, if you go back low-wise, I mean, it's maybe potentially going down under $1 billion, but the last time we really saw this was back in 2021, a low like this. The lull, yes, during the bear market, but then you had the rise, and then now all of a sudden stablecoins starting to exit Avalanche. What is going on with Avalanche in terms of a chart?
Yeah, it is a sad story. I still like AVAX long term, but the chart just, I've said this on your show before. It's a chart that, months ago didn't preach a lot of bullishness with lower highs dating back to the March 2024 dates. But it was one of those things fundamentally, there's so much happening for it. Here recently, like you said, the chart has been bleeding. I mean, this is just not a good looking chart right now. I'm not ready to dump my AVAX just yet. But after a bullish breakout of a falling wedge pattern, we didn't just come down and touch support. We're now continuing to lose. We're actually the lowest we've been since all the way back here in April of this year. Not a lot of altcoins are like that. Most altcoins are still above lows we had earlier in the month. Now, you're going to start getting extremely overextended here. This is going to be one of the few charts that as you look at longer time frames like the daily, we're starting to test that 30 on the RSI. We're back majorly overexposed. I think if you were to go to like the 4-hour chart, it looks like the 4-hour chart is probably gearing up for some form of a nice bounce back. I think this was one that's going to be interesting to trade with, just very simple moves back up towards $20 to trade the volatility of. But in a nutshell, you come back out to the longer time frames. If you're talking about longer term investors, because I could talk trading all day, every day, and get a lot of nuances here. It's the long term investors that are questioning, should I keep holding my AVAX? And I would say, listen, if you want to jump ship, that's up to you. But for me to get confident once again, we got to get back above this daily smart trail. We got to start cooking again. Once again, we got to break this lower high and lower low trend we've been in on the daily chart. Let's get back up here above $23. And then I think you're going to start getting some more confidence about AVAX. But for now, it's a hard chart to watch if you're a long-term holder of the coin.
It is one of those things. Like I said, when you start to see stable coins bleeding out of the ecosystem, that concerns me as a whole. Mm-hmm. One other thing I want to get to is with the strategy around Ethereum. Joseph Lubin, obviously we've talked about SharpLink Gaming here before. SBET is the ticker. And it's been one that has been skyrocketing, and then of course it has retraced down against these shorts, which have been pretty consistent. But these guys are like one of the top holding, I think, let me go over here to, Strategic ETH Reserve. They just made the list. Number 2 right now behind the Ethereum Foundation. So if this is truly a strategy style play, when you think about MicroStrategy and what they're doing with Bitcoin, is SharpLink Gaming and Joseph Lubin the new potential holders of ETH. When you look at SBET and its depression under the stress of the short sellers, would this be an entry based on what you know now around Ethereum holdings?
Very close, I would say. We talked about this on your show for the last couple of weeks. SBET, of course, the big news when it listed over here back earlier in May, created this massive gap. And I was on the channel with you, and we were trying to talk about when we were up here. We're like, is this the buy right now? And I kind of said, you know what? Clearly, the fundamentals are exciting. And this is a project that could keep going sky high. I mean, look at the MicroStrategies. Look at the CEPs of the world that have connected to Bitcoin. But I did warn people, hey, let's just watch to see how it reacts. Do we get a strong bounce back down where we opened up levels later in May, or do we start to make a move back down here towards 685? And even though we haven't made it all the way back down there, that is kind of the level that we've kind of now created.
Right.
Great news though, is the same reason it scares you when there's a gap down below. We now have a massive gap to the upside. So I would almost say anywhere in here, if you're going to look for a longer term play here because you believe in Ethereum long term, and then therefore you believe in a potential leverage play on that. Wow, this box, that's a very, let me change this to yellow so it's a little softer on the eyes. It's an intense blue box. This zone here between $9 and $7 is, I think, a great place to be acquiring cheap levels of SBET right here before the next big explosion. This is, again, a major sign of things to come. It happened during the Ethereum explosion. Ethereum's been kind of trading sideways. People have been selling off because it's not as exciting right now. But if the logic stands, and this is tied to Ethereum, if I'm right about ETH making a big move to the upside, it's logic would only say SBET would as well. And you're sitting in a nice acquisition zone right now if you're brave enough to jump into the waters.
Yeah, well, you look at what's happening with Circle, skyrocketing up 33% on the day. You've got Hood also climbing continuously. Then if you even take a look at Coinbase, also had another big boom. Most of that's been through stablecoins, that have kind of triggered that. But the point I'm getting at is this is going to open up, I think, mainstream investors that are going to start to look at it and go, well, what about this ETH thing? I've been watching the ETF. Inflows have been good. Is there a micro strategy of ETH? At some point, somebody's going to put those dots together, and we will see some interesting things happening. All right, Tim, we're definitely going to be getting you guys back on. I know you're coming on soon. We're going to be doing maybe a trading panel that will be fun coming up. So always fun to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again, Paul.
You bet. All right. So you guys get in the Diamond Circle. It's our own private group, and you can do it and join it for free. And all you have to do is click the link down below to get in on that. And of course, follow me out there on X @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.